When large jobs require moving massive amounts of snow, get the work done quickly and efficiently with the Western Pile Driver and all-new Pile Driver XL pusher plows, both featuring Trace Edge technology. These pushers scrape down to the pavement with an advanced cutting-edge system that has independent 2-foot sections that move vertically, oscillate, and trip. Get more jobs done faster with the Western Pile Driver lineup of pusher plows.
Mike Bott from Frost Solutions, one of the owners of the company. What we do is provide a mini weather station to give you a tailored forecast to those particular locations so you know where and when and what to do in those parts of town. You know there's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different ways that people can experience tremendous value having a technology like this.
Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey with your host, Dave Westcott. The Entrepreneurial Journey is a weekly podcast that streams live every Tuesday at 9:15 a.m. Pacific on Dave's YouTube channel and LinkedIn profile. Now here's Dave with this week's episode.
Good morning and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey. I'm your host, Dave Westcott, and this morning I've got with me Todd Chapman.
Good morning.
Good morning, Todd.
How are you?
What's going on in the NBA Finals?
You know, I kind of bowed out a little bit after my Nuggets ended, which is funny because, you know, usually we kind of rap a little bit back and forth, and you didn't give me a hard time for my Nuggets, bowing out a little bit earlier than expected.
That's because you got me a hat when you went to the NBA championship.
Okay.
So
I think it's Boston and Dallas. I do know that, and I think Boston's winning, but yeah, I don't know. I don't follow.
I hope the Celtics win. Go Celtics.
It's been a while. It's been a
Go
long
Celtics.
time, I think. So yeah.
Go
so
Green Pride.
I think Boston's looking like.
Can we do that?
So.
Can we say Green Pride?
It depends. Well, we won't go there.
Can we say Green Pride?
No.
All right. Well, listen. It's glad to say hi. The reason we do this little introduction with Todd playing basketball is because he was playing in the Final Four as a
there it is.
College student. You don't want to forget that Todd is a semi-professional basketball player.
Fact check that.
Todd Chapman. Chapman. 6'6".
280.
280.
No.
You are not 280.
No, it's funny.
You are more like 198.
No, it's funny because you get into this. There's this topic of what the media guide says, or like what the roster says you are. And it was funny because speaking of that, when I was playing college, it listed me as like 6'5", 195. In reality, I was barely 6'4" with shoes and like 180, so it's funny how, even nowadays, you look at the NBA, I think it's the combine or whatever, and guys are getting ready to get drafted. And it's funny because you'll see them listed as a certain height. And even those guys at like the top level they'll go in the combine and it's like an inch, 2 inches smaller, than some of these guys because they're still elevating their height. But yeah, just for the fact checkers, 6'3".
Yeah, that's true. 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", whatever he is, who knows?
Okay.
All right. So listen, today's a really important topic. A lot of entrepreneurs looking to start their business are looking to make a decision in one of two ways. And, maybe they're going to go out and start out on their own, and, maybe they're going to start a franchise. Or maybe they're going to buy a franchise. And I think that whether you're buying a franchise or you're just starting out on your own on your entrepreneurial journey, I think that this is a good place to start. And I'm not a believer that I don't believe that an entrepreneur is a franchisee, right? I believe that true entrepreneurship and true business success is driven through building your own brand. That's my personal perspective. Todd Chapman is a franchise executive, had been for maybe 13 years, or 13 years,
Yep,
right?
That's right. Yep.
And you spent, what was it, about 8 years with OxyFresh?
Yep, about 6 years with OxyFresh.
About 6 years with OxyFresh.
And 6 years with U.S. Lawns.
6 years with U.S. Lawns.
Yep, and then a few years, obviously, with TransBlue.
And a few years with TransBlue.
Yep.
And so you've got a lot of franchise experience under your belt.
Yep, I do.
And this is always a big question. And I'm just going to ask you the question today. Would you buy a franchise if you were thinking about starting a business?
It's a good question. if it were me,
Mm-hmm.
I think I would.
You would.
I think I would buy a franchise. And I think one is if, for all those, and I've taken, I don't know if it's thousands, but I've taken, many people through the journey of buying a franchise, both with Oxfresh, with US Lawns, all in the service-based industry. So I've never partaken in restaurants or, that industry. However, I think the journey is pretty similar. Looking at, you really got to be honest with yourself of, who am I at the heart? And you already mentioned it. I've actually said this for years too. And, I think we put franchisees as, that they're entrepreneurs and they're entrepreneurial. I've said a lot of times, like, franchisors don't really want to have true entrepreneurs in their system. And talking to a lot of franchise companies out there, a lot of franchisors do not want to have a true entrepreneurial franchisee. If you think about the franchise model and you think about the franchise system, there's processes, there's a certain way of doing things, right? That have led, and it's replicable. That's the idea of franchising, that, hey, it's not changing. It's not, it's consistent. You're delivering a consistent service or a product that, whether you're, obviously on, Seattle, Washington to, Denver, Colorado, or New York City, that you can walk into that restaurant or get that service and you can expect the same delivery and consistent experience as a customer, right? And that as a franchisee, you're delivering that same product or service across the board. And so the reason I say that is a lot of entrepreneurs, I think in the heart, and you being one of them, as well, just seeing entrepreneur, not say you wouldn't be a great franchisee, because I think there are some that can be, there's a place for entrepreneurs in the franchise model, and I'll get to that in a second. But I think, if you're truly an enterprising personality type, an entrepreneur, franchising is about following a system. And what I've noticed with a lot of entrepreneurs, and we've had so many on the show as great guests, they just go about it their own way a lot of times, and they have a go-get attitude. They figure it out. If something's not working, they're going to try a different system in a different way. They're just made up that way, is what I found. And so in my own experience, when we've brought on and I've awarded entrepreneurs in that boat, it typically did not work out because they were constantly battling with the franchise company and the leadership and the ways it should be done. Now, there's one exception I think I would say to that is if you're early on, and feel like there's somewhat of a molding to be done with the franchise model. Say you're just really franchising it out. Although I'd argue, like, hey, you've tried it, you've done it so much, if you're franchising it, that the systems work, but and sometimes you need to have some people with risk taking a little bit more than, say, a proven model over 2 decades who've been out there. But for myself, I realized, like, I'm not truly entrepreneurial, like I'm not a full entrepreneur, and so I like having some form of a model and a system and believing in that. And so for me, I think,
so what you're saying is you would buy a franchise.
I would. Yeah. Long-winded answer is yes, I would.
All right.
And that is why.
So Todd Chapman would buy a franchise. If you were going to buy a franchise today, what might you buy?
That's a good question. I've actually thought about this,
I'm sure you have.
off and on, what it would be, because you go back and what I, there's so many, I mean, there's thousands, there's literally thousands. We talk about restaurants. It wouldn't be a restaurant.
No restaurants.
No restaurants.
Okay.
One, I've never even worked in food and beverage unless you qualify as like working the concession stand when I was in high school and college for like sports teams, and that doesn't qualify.
Yep.
So for me, no restaurants. I love the idea of service. I like the idea of kind of a low investment model. So I think in service-based businesses, I'm not a big fan of having a brick and mortar store or retail. I think it's a large investment. So I'd go that way. And then the thing I would look at is what are you passionate about? One question that always come back, do I have to be passionate about what I do? And I kind of go back and forth on that, because some would say, one, passion is really what fuels a lot of entrepreneurs. We have them on the show is like, there's just a passion there from a founder and an owner that is very tough to replicate. And so, I think I've had some great franchisees through the years. But I wasn't in sexy businesses, as far as carpet cleaning, floor cleaning with OxyFresh, or, commercial landscape maintenance at US Lawns, and even TransBlue construction. These aren't sexy businesses like a yogurt shop or some of these franchises that are out there. But they're a viable service that is typically in high need and high demand. One concept I actually looked quite a bit at, and really was thinking about was a franchise called I9 Sports. And there's several of these sports, youth sports program franchises.
Yep.
And, the reason for that is, one, as you mentioned, athletics, sports has been a huge part of my life, growing up. And one of the most impactful things in my life was my dad taking my brother and I and some of our friends when I was in 4th grade, 5th grade, and started a feeder program, a basketball program called the Yellow Jackets. And we were looking for kind of a more competitive type of league, and then the local recreation league provided through the schools. And we just started this, with my brother's grade, and it started with one team. It was like a fifth and 6th grade team, and it blossomed. Now it's still going to this day, 20 plus years later, or 30 years plus later, with 6th grade to 8th grade boys and girls. And it feeds into into the area where I am. And that impact, what's interesting is, some of those friends, and that the just all the relationships that were forged and life lessons that happened through that was super impactful to me, to all the other kids, that went through that program. So for me, like living that and then seeing how sports can really help elevate you throughout life and teach you a lot of skills, I had a passion for that. And so I looked at, something along those lines. What I realized though is you also need to realize that there's certain results that really come from that. And one thing I found, no offense to I9 if you're listening, because there's probably some that really grow it to help financially impact their life. It was more of a hobby franchise is what I put it, where and even you look at the statistics through the International Franchise Association. A lot of franchisees don't make as much as you think they do, as far as the financial windfalls. Some do. Some have incredibly changed their lives.
You have the top 10% everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere. But overall, I think the average take is roughly, and I may be wrong now, but it's around $70,000 a year.
Yeah. I've seen similar. That's the take
was that kind of where you are. So
yeah.
But at the end of the day, some might say, hey, if you love what you do and you're passionate about it, and that's kind of weighing that that scale of what you really are looking for. For me, that's something that I could see myself maybe someday doing, just because I've seen the impact of my life. I'm passionate about sports and the impact to the youth. And so
I9 Sports is something that
something along those lines
interests
maybe.
you.
Yeah, something along those lines. Yeah, I think that's what I have thought about in the past. The question I would have though is, do you have to love what you're doing? Is if it's a good service and you can really help change your life, like what's the priority there? I think that's the question for entrepreneurs that are out there, looking at this, is ask yourself the question: one, what's my personality? Can I follow a system? Two, can I really know that?
What was the first one? I'm sorry.
I say one is just, is my personality truly entrepreneurial? Can I follow a system? Do I need a system, or am I truly an entrepreneur that is tough for me to put in a box? I think if I'm an enterprising personality, the franchising is going to be hard for that personality type, because they like being in the full control. They don't like giving up that control, and they like changing things and evolving, so I think that's tough. But then two, I would say, can you be fully committed knowing that the buck stops with you? Because I think that mindset of being an owner is so much different than corporate America or being an employee. I think and Harvard Business Review has some case studies on this too, just that changing of mindsets when you're leaving an employer, and there's always someone else maybe to help and assist. Not that the franchise companies don't do a great job, but realizing that, hey, you are the owner. You know, they are your employees. You know, the buck stops with you. You're the main decision maker, because even though you're branding, you know, under a certain brand, I mean, it is your entity, and you have full, full responsibility there as an independent business owner. So I think the second question is like, hey, can I fully be committed to as an owner? You know, and then lastly, can I lead people? You know, I think regardless of if you want to scale something, you gotta be able to have the ability to lead and manage a team. You know, whether that team is a few people or potentially hundreds, you know, depending on what the concept is. I think those are three big things to think about, you know. What franchise, what industry, I think look at your background. I mean, that's what, for me, I know for a fact I wouldn't be able to do restaurants, you know, unless someday I just want to be an investor and kind of totally hands off and let someone else with experience do that.
What is the toughest thing that you think any entrepreneur or franchisee goes through in business? What would you say? If you had to put 3 words behind it, what would it be?
Overcoming failure.
Overcoming failure.
Or having grit.
You know, I think for me, I think the number one thing, and you can relate this back to a million different things, is employees.
People. Yeah, that's what I was.
I think for me, that's the number one thing.
Sometimes that grit is people overcoming that.
Harvard Business Review has a statistic. I want to say that, excuse me, not Harvard Business Review, Harvard Business School, and I want to go back and pull it. 46%, I want to say off the top of my head, when we've shared these statistics before, 46% of businesses fail because of poor management. 46, not owner management, hired management. 46% fail because of hired management. The majority of businesses that fail when a highly successful executive decides they want to go out on their own and become an entrepreneur. And the quote is something to the effect of, highly effective and successful executives become like a deer in the headlights when it comes to making quick, decisive decisions. They become paralyzed. They can't make the decision. And they end up putting themselves out of business. The statistics on business failure are through the roof.
They are.
I mean, I was going to write a LinkedIn post the other day and somehow I forgot to write it about this. And now it's reminded me. But I looked up the statistics for business failure, and I look them up every so often. But the statistics are just absolutely brutal. So if you were asking me what the perfect business to be is, and I know you're not, this show is talking about franchising, but if you were to ask me what the perfect business is, it would be a business. Like if I'm checking boxes, like I'm going to take my notes out that wonderful Ralph gave me. And if I was to start a business, there are some key things that I would do differently. Number one most important thing is build a business that requires no more than 2 to 3 employees. Max. Employees are the biggest killer of your business. You can look at every franchise that I've seen, it's employees, right? It always comes back to employees.
Yeah.
Why? They're human. They're human beings. And the thing is, they're just going from A to B. They just have a job. They wake up in the morning, they go to work. Maybe they like it. Maybe they don't. Maybe they're searching for a new job. Maybe they're not. Maybe they want more vacation time. Maybe they want different values. Maybe they don't want to be yelled at. There's a million things that are going on. And then this thing called life happens, and amazing employees who are your best employee in the world can in 2 weeks become your worst employee, and somebody that you've loved having on your team, you can think about having to replace them. It's a sad thing. And it's just constantly juggling employees, and employees always want more employees. You know, like, oh, we need more people. We need more people for this. And then the reality is you should trim down your people. One of the things that I do, I know people don't like it, is at the end of every snow year, I look at, you know, who are 10% of the people who aren't doing a good job, and I let them go. Right? Like I do a layoff every year. Like that doesn't make people feel good. That doesn't make them love my business, Trans Blue, probably. But I figured that that's the 10% who don't really care anyway, who's going to do better somewhere else anyway. And so, you know, like, what has our team been preparing for the last couple of months? We've been rating each player, right? We do the 9-block assessment. Everybody has to send their assessments in. And what are they doing? They're rating those team members, and they're saying, okay, this is an A player, this is a B player, this is a C player. We're getting rid of the C players. I hate to say it. I hate to even throw that out there, but I got to do it. You know what I mean? So what does that mean? 8 to 10 people are going to get let go every year. You've seen it.
Yeah.
Right?
No. Yeah, we've seen the assessment.
And you've seen them every year. Layoffs, right? So and some years they're harder than others, but
Sure. Yeah. I mean, business happens.
But
too,
it's
yep.
so hard. It's such a hard thing to do. It is so hard. And it's actually so hard to make those layoffs because you don't want to even do it as an employer. So when I'm talking about the perfect business, whether it's a franchise or whether it's not, I want a business that enables me to not have more than 2 or 3 employees. That's number one, non-negotiable. Number 2 is I want to work from anywhere in the world.
So absentee. I mean, not absentee from the business, but from a physical
presence. I want a remote-driven business.
Okay.
I want a business that I can run on the beaches of Maui.
Sounds awesome.
I take pride in that. And then number 3 is I want a business that will generate positive cash flow income after taxes and payroll and everything that will generate $30,000 a month in owner salary.
Owner.
That's what I want. If you asked me today if I could have those 3 things, that's what would interest me. 2 to 3 employees,
Remote,
max.
30K.
Can work from anywhere, make $30K a month.
Have you spoken to a business broker that can get you in touch with that? I'm just thinking of that, you know, just with potential opportunities, right? I mean, like what would that business look like, you know, whether franchise or not, you know, I mean.
Have you heard of a business like this in franchising?
Not the top of my head.
No, you haven't.
Not off the top of my head, you know, I mean, just obviously.
When you buy a franchise, this is kind of what you think is going to happen.
And so.
When you start a business, this is kind of what
sure.
you think is going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay? This is
Yeah.
the sunset, man.
Oh, it is.
This is the sunset with the glass of wine, feet up on the table, boat down below, hanging out like you're living a good life.
Yeah. this is the potential end game. You know, obviously 2 to 3 employees is going to limit quite a few opportunities off the table.
But employees are
scalability.
so hard. It's so hard to manage team members.
Yeah, no, and that's
even
what
if you're a great
one
leader,
of the points,
even if you build great culture. Listen, it's always, you know, as an owner, you're faced with several things: more taxes, more taxes, more taxes, more taxes, more taxes, more taxes. Right?
Yeah, especially in the state you live in.
Constantly taxed. Okay, and now we're focused with more time off, more benefits, higher pay, more perks, more this, more. I mean, it's like you got 2 sides of this thing that are just sucking the life out of your business. Right? And as the owner, like the stress is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
There's no rest. There's no beautiful time. Even when you have the great wins, you can't even really enjoy the great wins because you're focused on what am I going to do next. And when you do have that big sale and you do have that big moment, now it's like, oh my God, now I got to execute it. Now I got to put all this time in, and now I got to do this. And I mean, and I've told you the story about closing the deal with Radio Shack, and it's a $1.2 million deal. And I'm absolutely ecstatic, and we're just crushing it.
Yeah.
Right. My business role is just awesome. And I got a call center with 40 or 50 people in there, and they're working, you know, whatever it is, you know, 3 shifts, 24 hours a day. And now a facility manager calls and he's upset about, you know, something going on at a Radio Shack. Like it's work job number 1. And that team member, you know, who probably at the time makes 15 or 20 bucks an hour, cusses out that facility manager, and I get fired from a $1.2 million job in a day.
By an hourly employee who may have just having a bad day, or who knows, you know.
Or the employee that gives a down payment to a contractor and walks away.
Mm-hmm.
You lose 30 grand.
Yep.
Or the person who's a project manager and works for the company, you know this story, and he goes,
oh yeah, starts his own.
He has his own business, and he has the accounting team for a job that's going on, write the payment to the name of the business, and it's his own business. He takes
total fraud,
you know, 25, 30 grand and walks away from the business, and the contractor comes in and is like, hey, when am I going to get paid? He's like, we already paid you. And he's like, no, you didn't. And the guy disappears, and now it's like, oh my gosh.
And for a small business owner.
Or the employee
15,
who
20 grand's a lot.
makes an error and pays the government $300,000 in taxes that are off, and then can't get that money back from the government for a year. Cripples the business.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I'm not saying that all stays there, but then the flip to that is you can't grow the business without the people.
I know.
You have to have the people. So to go far, we have to have people. And if we're going far and we have to have people, that means we have to build culture, we have to build trust, we have to build amazing relationships. We have to put so much time into it. But as an employer, all you feel is the burn. You feel like you get burned over and over and over again. You know, so it's this really wearing statistic. And you mentioned service-based business. And one thing I never want to do personally is go back to that service-based business. That's from being an owner. I can tell you that, you know, we had 115 guys that had to be working at any given time. That's 30 trucks out on the road, you know, roughly 3 to 4 guys per truck, depending on what it looks like. Then you've got a series of supervisors,
administrators,
you know, you got different people going on. But let me tell you something. The truth of the matter is that those 115 guys that you've got rolling, there's about 25 or 30 of them that are just, maybe they're 2 weeks, maybe they're 6 weeks, maybe they're 3 months, maybe they're 6 months. But there is a revolving door.
Yeah, it's a turnover. Yeah.
There is a seriously,
or some other industries,
landscaping, construction, janitorial,
frontline workers, man.
It is just, it's a revolving door. You get, I mean, I'll say you get a good 85 people or 80 people in that category that are strong and that are good. But when you get to the point where you need to send out a 3-man crew and there's no 3-man crew to send out, and you just send out a 1-man crew, you know that it's not going to work well. You know you're going to have problems. You know it's going to be a fight that day. And I'll tell you what, it is so hard to manage that. I can remember at our shop, we would do open interviews on Fridays. And I can tell you that there was a time, 07, 08, before it crashed on us, and before my crash of 09, where the interview line would be 60 people long. I'm not kidding you. And we would literally like screen them. If they were good, they'd go to the next room. And if they weren't, we would send them away. And we'd literally screen them. Boom, 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 boom. And I'm telling you what, there was so many people looking for jobs. There was so much work out there. And they would work. They'd work for a couple of weeks, be gone. Work for 6 months, be gone. I mean, it was just...
I remember in the landscape industry when I was at lawns, I mean, how many stories did you hear, like, guy starts and then would just take off at lunch. Like,
oh, yeah.
Just gone. Like, it would would be out on a crew.
Sure.
And then I'm out. You know,
happen all the time.
Yeah. How often?
Or be
that
ready to
happens.
go, have the crew showed up, and the guys that's supposed to have the driver's license doesn't show up.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got a crew sitting there with no driver's license. Do you run the crew?
Yeah, those are the decisions, right? Yeah,
it's so tough. It is so tough. But anyways, those are the things that I would be looking for. We got to bring this thing in for a landing. It's been a great call. It's gone fast, so you know that means we really did a good job today. But I guess the biggest question, the biggest piece to this thing is, if you were to buy a franchise today, what would be the top 3 things that you would look for?
Those sound good to me, though. You mentioned that's a good start. Can I just go there?
You can. If that's good enough, you can parlay it.
Yeah, I think. I mean, today I think you got to look at. Where you are in your life, what you're looking for. I think it prioritizes, because there's going to be sacrifices to be made. One thing I know, you're going to sacrifice time, money. A little of that, no matter who it is, franchise or not. I mean, because this sounds like a good end game. What I do know is a lot of people need to build even to this, right? Like, unless you're buying an existing business, that type of salary, that type of income, which, a lot of executives may be making, that are looking at a franchising, looking to replace that income as fast as possible.
It's only $360 grand a year.
Yeah. And so, you got people that, and if they're not meeting that, man, their patience can wane, right? If they're coming into something. So, but for me, this is why I look at I-9. It's like, I think the money needs to be in the part of the equation to support my family, so, but I think also knowing that I want to wake up knowing that, like, I believe in the product, I believe in the service that I'm doing. I really do, because if I'm going to own something, I want to 100% be committed to it, and I think for me, that's number one. It really is. I think I like, I like the limitation of employees. I do agree. I mean, people is such a key component of business. So I think obviously in something that has to be hundreds, I'm not, not that I want to impact people's lives. I do, but I want to use that through the service. That's why I do like something like youth sports programs, because I think you can impact quite a bit of people with a limited staff. I've seen that, I've seen it firsthand. A lot of volunteer based. That's a whole nother thing when it comes to that type of program too, because you're relying on parents, you're relying on people to step up. So I think one is something I believe in and I'm passionate about. I believe in the cause, the culture, and then two, that can meet my needs, at least the baseline needs for my family, provide opportunity. And then three, for me, that's something that I think is going to be able to flex the different economical times, something that there's just a high demand for in a market, regardless, that's not volatile. Cause we talked about yogurt shops. That yogurt craze was insane, like maybe 10 to 15 years ago, where there were so many brands in that space. There was so, it was just, but how many do you really see out there now? That space is truly impacted. So you got these brands and these industries that kind of come and go. So I want something that's going to be there, for the long run. So those are the top three I can think of that I'd be looking for.
I love it. I love it. He added recession proof to the program. I think that's good. Listen, if you're thinking about starting a business, if you're thinking about doing a franchise, reach out. DM me on LinkedIn. DM Todd Chapman on LinkedIn. Send us a direct message. Send us a note. We're happy to chat and share anything that we know about, business startups, running a business with you. We want to see you be successful and succeed. I'm your host, Dave Westcott. Follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, anywhere where it's social. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Check it out. I'm running a marathon. Check that out. That's a lot of fun. I'm gonna be sharing a video about being in an ice bath here shortly, so that's gonna be exciting.
Nice,
for all of those who want to see a big man take his clothes off. we're gonna get a little wild and crazy.
Might get some different viewers on that.
That's okay.
Expand the viewership.
I take pride in all my viewers. So listen, I appreciate it, and we're having a great time. Follow us, give us a like, give us a share, drop your comments into the comments box. It's the Entrepreneur. We're doing nothing but having fun and watching Todd Chapman shoot free throws.
That's another video. Adios.
Clothes on or off?
To be determined.
Do you have the dream about shooting free throws naked?
No comment.
Okay, he's been there, folks. Before the championship game, he's dreaming about it.
People. That's right.
All right, just hope they don't have the air conditioning on. And that's it. We're going to bring this in for a close. We'll see y'all later. Thanks for joining the Entrepreneurial Journey. Have a good night.
When large jobs require moving massive amounts of snow, get the work done quickly and efficiently with the Western Pile Driver and all-new Pile Driver XL pusher plows, both featuring Trace Edge technology. These pushers scrape down to the pavement with an advanced cutting-edge system that has independent 2-foot sections that move vertically, oscillate, and trip. Get more jobs done faster with the Western Pile Driver lineup of pusher plows.
Mike Bott from Frost Solutions, one of the owners of the company. What we do is provide a mini weather station to give you a tailored forecast to those particular locations so you know where and when and what to do in those parts of town. You know there's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different ways that people can experience tremendous value having a technology like this.